Young Turks, everybody, welcome to the show. Ben Mankiewicz here at the TYT headquarters at Los Angeles, the West Coast headquarters. Cenk is in New York, where he's been hosting at MSNBC. Last week, he'll be there all this week, 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 Pacific. Make sure to watch, again, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific time. Cenk, how are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Good show today?
Sure. Did a lot of Egypt, and I know we're going to do some Egypt now. We're going to do different stories on the Young Turks than we did on MSNBC. But the one thing I liked about the coverage we did at 6 o'clock today is we debunked some of the ideas about Muslim Brotherhood. Richard Engel, who's the chief foreign correspondent for NBC News, apparently lived with the Muslim Brotherhood for a while, at least in the same neighborhood. And he came on and said, look, they're a group that is generally poor and has some social services and obviously religious, but it would not be like 1979 in Iran. It's not like the Taliban in Afghanistan. There's not going to be any, religious takeover, and then all of a sudden you have this, massively fundamentalist government. That's just not the scenario. And then the second thing I liked was that we, I said, look, we got to pick sides, man. This whole hedging is nonsense. Because saying, oh, we are for Mubarak to do reforms is saying we're for Mubarak to crush these reforms at a later time. Keep it real.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that, but let me touch briefly, though, on the Muslim Brotherhood, because I don't know, we were debating the name here briefly, and it's fascinating to learn that they're not that dangerous, because certainly the perception is that it is Iran 1979 all over again, or the Taliban. And it's totally interesting to hear Richard Engel debunk that, and I did hear that interview on MSNBC with you today. But the Muslim Brotherhood to me sounds totally made up, and it sounds like what Alan Rickman would have said in the original Die Hard when making up a terrorist group as one of his fake demands to the FBI. I need 3 of my comrades from the Muslim Brotherhood released from captivity, but it turns out they're real.
Yeah, they've been around since 1928. There was a peaceful strand and a more violent strand. Now, I'm being rough with the history here, but at some point, one of the guys in the violent strand killed the guy in the peaceful strand, which is usually what happens.
Yeah.
That happened in Al.
You seldom hear about it the other way around.
Right. That happened in Al-Qaeda, too, at some point. And remember, Ayman al-Zawahiri's from Egypt. So don't get me wrong, it's not like the Muslim Brotherhood is playing patty cakes, and it's not like, they're a hunky-dory group looking to go around hugging trees. But at the same time, they are totally within the political sphere of Egypt, and it doesn't appear that they would, they don't even have the capacity to do some kind of violent takeover of the government. The people who are going to decide are the guys with the guns, and that's the Egyptian army. So all the Egyptian Brotherhood would do is enter elections, and then, like Hezbollah, they could have significant sway in the government, like Hezbollah does in Lebanon, right? But right now, they actually reject terrorism. They don't go down that road at all. So I'm not saying they're good guys. I'm just saying it's not this Muslim takeover of Egypt that people are throwing out there to, of course, in reality, to prop up Mubarak or watch out for the Muslim Brotherhood. They're the boogeymen.
Well, regarding the taking sides, I don't know really what taking sides means. But my instinct is to say that we ought not take sides, or certainly ought not say that we're taking sides. I don't even really know what that means, in the sense that we certainly should, it's very complicated. At some point, I think we can all acknowledge that the Mubarak government is going to fall, whether it's in a week or a year or 5 years. At some point, there's going to be a significant change. And I would like to hope that the Hillary Clinton State Department is far better equipped to deal with that change than a previous State Department was. Certainly one where the Defense Department and Don Rumsfeld was essentially controlling the State Department. As to what the president says now, I got to think that that's largely immaterial as to what we hope is actually being played out. But we haven't read any serious reporting as to what that is. But one would think, obviously, there's some serious stuff going on diplomatically at this point.
Yeah, I hear you on that, Ben. And look, I get that it's complicated, and that of course there's many reasons why having a guy who might be a dictator but who's our ally in the region makes a difference, and we have to be careful about that. Yada yada yada. But here's my point, and I'll put it a little bit more crass than I did on MSNBC, of course. My point is, are we full of crap or are we not? So when we say, hey, we're in favor of democracy, da, 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 do we actually totally and utterly don't mean it? And so we're just in favor of a dictator in Egypt if we like it, but we're in favor of democracy in Iraq if we can use that as a pretense for invasion. Or we have the elections in the Palestinian territories, Hamas wins, and then we go, screw it.
Right,
We're
but
just kidding.
I mean, of course not. But we, by the same token, I mean, are we full of crap, meaning me and you, or are we not? Because the fact of the matter is, yeah, we're in favor of democracy, but we didn't think getting rid of Saddam was a good idea. And he was a dictator that maintained a degree of peace and stability in that region. So I guess we're not in favor of democracy in that case. And Mubarak is, and by the way, you're like a maybe dictator. I think we can go ahead and say a guy who wins with 92% of the vote every single time he has an election and has declared a state of martial law for 29 years. I mean, I think the emergency decree of martial law, I don't think we're on the cusp of it being over. Because now, by the way, I think you need martial law, maybe for the first time. So, I don't know. I mean, it's a cop-out to say it's complicated. Of course it's complicated. But, I mean, by the same token, yeah, of course we're in favor of democracy, but democracy is complicated. It's messy, and we got to know what democracy exactly means because, of course, it's not like you're going to overthrow Mubarak and then 6 months later we're going to have an election and we're going to know who wins because it matters who wins.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it should matter who wins. Like, hey, if the Muslim Brotherhood wins, that really sucks for us and sad day for us. But, okay, then if we don't like that and we definitely don't want that, let's just be honest and say, okay, turns out we're not for democracy.
Well, okay, but I mean, I don't think you know me and hypocrisy. It's okay. It doesn't have to be just a sad day for us. I mean, you get to exert your influence. At some point, you don't get to go to war to exert your influence, but you get to exert your influence. And then ultimately, if there's nothing you can do to exert that influence, and if exerting your influence is standing in the way of a movement, a tidal wave that just can't be stopped, then you got to get out of the way. But it doesn't mean you have to get out of the way right now.
Yeah, So my last point on this, Ben, is that I think it does, and I'll tell you why. Because this is not Iran where we don't have much sway. We might have some moral sway, some maybe ideological sway, whatever it might be with the pro-democratic movement. But in Egypt, we have real sway because we give them a ton of money, and so people are hooked on that money. If we say, hey, we're not giving the money to Mubarak anymore, the people who are the final beneficiaries of that, some of whom, of course, are not Mubarak, are going to say, whoa, now it's time for change, right? So we do have real power in this case, and if you don't do it now, I mean, in the middle of 250,000 people showing up in the streets of Cairo, well, then you're just not going to do it.
Well, all I will say to that is, and my final point will be, what does now mean? Does now mean today, or does now mean in the next 3 weeks? And if at some point we play a role sometime in the next 2 months of orchestrating some sort of peaceful exodus for the Mubarak government, then we've done our jobs.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Mubarak leaves in 3 weeks, I'm throwing a party.
If he leaves in 2 months, then we can have that same party.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Ben. I'm afraid that 2 months is an excuse, and he's not going to leave in 2 months. If I thought for sure he's going to leave in 2 months, deal, right? But if he says 2 months, 2 months later, everything has calmed down, he's arrested half the people who were doing the protests, all of a sudden he's not leaving. You see what I'm saying?
No, of course not. I don't know what's going to happen in 2 months. I'm just painting a scenario where perhaps the end result is where something good happens that's not us saying he's got to go now, we're with the protesters. And that's never been said by any administration in the history of the United States. Doesn't mean it's right. That's just what's happened. But it doesn't matter because what Mubarak has done today is a real sign of change. Because the old guard cabinet is out and a bunch of social reformers, a bunch of young guns, they're in, and it's a new path for Egypt, so I don't think we have anything to worry about.
All right, so the new vice president is a guy by the name of Omar Suleiman. Okay, he is the former intelligence chief, basically for Mubarak, and he's the guy who helped the CIA with their rendition program. The way he would help is by taking some people we've given him and torture them. And one of the guys he famously tortured was al-Libi. Al-Libi was the guy who later, many years later, recanted and said, "Hey, you know what? I told them that Saddam had something to do with Al-Qaeda because I didn't want to die. And I thought I was on the edge of dying. So I made something up." And that made-up evidence, of course, partly led to our war in Iraq. And this Suleiman character is, to call him a reformer, I mean, I guess that would win some sort of prize in irony.
Yeah, I mean, what do you expect? I love moves like this by authoritarian governments. They're in the middle of these massive protests that clearly represent a sea change in the history of this country. I mean, 150 years from now, long past the nuclear annihilation that we've all lived through. When students read about the history of Egypt, they will learn about what's happening now because there will be some sort of sea change. And does anyone think that the moment that Hosni Mubarak fires his cabinet and replaces him with other friends of his, following 29 years of emergency rule and martial law, that there aren't any reformers to appoint? How can it possibly make a difference? I love these moves. It's like when they used to make these moves at the Kremlin until the day that finally they appointed that guy Gorbachev to an important position. That turned out to bite him in the ass.
Right. So, him saying, I would like to now shuffle my friends around.
Yeah, come on.
And give you my set of friends, who, by the way, are actually in some ways much worse than my old set of friends, as my new cabinet, problem solved, is a gigantic joke. But now, Ben, to be fair, there were two new appointments that were not in his government at all. You know what the two posts were?
What's that?
Culture Minister and the Minister of Antiquities.
Yeah, oh, that's right. The cultural minister was a prominent literary figure. Oh, that's exciting.
Yes.
Because one of the guys who was ousted was the interior minister, and he was in charge of the security services, right? So I guess that's something that the people on the streets can be pleased with, because this is the guy in charge of the security services, and there's all the photos and the beatings and the giant military crackdowns. So you have to be in favor of that. But then you mentioned that the intelligence chief, the Omar Suleiman, comes in, and I'm reminded of a story that Anna and I did last week when Bristol Palin was briefly was going to go to the Washington University in St. Louis for Sex Week, and it's just that sort of good news, bad news, where you're like, woo, it's Sex Week, fantastic, and then you're like, oh, but Bristol Palin's coming, and here you're like, the security chief is gone, but the new vice president is the intelligence minister. It's just a brief moment of excitement.
Yeah, there were several reports out that the guys who were doing the looting for a while were actually sent by the interior minister and sent by the police. And that the whole idea behind that was to create such a state of panic and emergency that Mubarak could then come in and go, what are we going to do? I need to bring the police in here to regulate this out-of-control protesters. And they try to blame the protesters. Now, normally I'd say, he said, she said, it's really hard to determine. But here's why you had an excellent clue that might be true. Just conveniently at the same exact time, the police left for several days in the middle of a revolution.
Yeah, I mean, there's interesting, of course, as often one would expect, there are power plays within the Egyptian government going on here. These guys all don't like each other. They're making plays for who will succeed Mubarak, who's 82 years old, described by some inside the U.S. government, some diplomats inside the U.S. government, as sort of doddering and senile. If there's no sort of significant sea change in the Egyptian government, there'll be some other autocrat who takes over from Mubarak. So that sort of jockeying is going on. Meanwhile, Egypt has been expelled for some time by the Arab League because of the treaty, as Egypt has made peace with Israel. So I'm curious, and you read up on this today, what's Israel's reaction been?
Israel's apparently telling their diplomats all across the world, in the U.S., Europe, Russia, etc., saying, tell the people who are friendly to us, governments friendly to us, of course, including primarily the United States, be cool, be cool. Mubarak's our boy. We don't want to lose Mubarak. And look, I get why, right? Because they've had, this nearly 30-year peace with Egypt, and they think, well, we know Mubarak, and he plays ball, and in a lot of ways, in good ways, right? They've had the peace. That's good. And with whoever's going to come next, we don't know if they're going to, be on our team. So they're saying, yeah, democracy is not our interest. Our interest is keep Mubarak.
I don't doubt that Israel has a long-term plan, but man, don't you want to ask them what it is? Don't you want a candid conversation with an Israeli official who will tell you honestly what the long-term plan is?
That's interesting, Ben. Like you're saying, like, okay, so the short-term plan is keep Mubarak.
Yeah.
It's
always been keep Mubarak, but I mean, at some point you're going to lose Mubarak, and is it just the plan that there'll be another Mubarak for another 15 years and then another one? I guess that's the long-term plan, but you got to. I mean, it can't work. It can't. I mean, I'm not an expert on the region, but I'm positive it can't work. Am I wrong?
Look, if you want me to keep it real, and I know you do, Ben, my sense of it is that, and my sense of it is informed by the fact that I have read some of the, what former negotiators for Israel, former leaders of Israel wrote on this issue, is to, keep the West Bank for as long as possible, so that and obviously Jerusalem, so they could build more and more on it to get a larger share of it. They get that at some point they're going to have to let it go, and my guess is, and now I'm doing more speculation, not based on the writings, is that at some point they realize they're going to have more trouble than they can deal with, and then at that point go, okay, I guess this is as much as we can get. Let's make a deal and try to quiet this trouble so that we can live with all of our neighbors. But until then, they're just going to hold and look, there's some logic in it. They are, right now, they do have a much better position on the ground in East Jerusalem and in the West Bank. And, partly propping up these Arab dictators have helped them and not hurt them in maintaining that stability that allows them to grow there.
This crisis in Egypt has given at least one member of the Republican caucus some thoughts on how this will affect oil drilling at home. Let's touch on that quickly before we take a break. Jeff Landry is a Republican from Louisiana, the 3rd District of Louisiana. He's been appointed to 3 key congressional committees recently with broad oversight of national transportation infrastructure issues. He's the vice chairman of the Coast Guard and Maritime Transportation Subcommittee. Sounds like a great job. Anyway, he says the situation in Egypt is obviously, as you see the protesters in the streets and this opportunity for democracy to take hold in a region that hasn't had it, and where autocratic rule has been the dominant theme for centuries, generations and generations. Obviously, this is a time for Exxon to drill it home. Here's Jeff Landry.
How serious a situation is what we're seeing in Egypt for oil prices here, and what are you calling on the United States government, the president and Congress to do immediately?
Well, I think we're back to where we were in the 1970s. The Department of Energy was created in order to shield the United States and its economy from exactly what we're seeing today, an unrest in the Middle East that can drive the price of energy through the roof.
Now, you're calling for the president to drill now. Obviously, given the April 20th explosion there on the Deepwater Horizon rig, there's all kinds of regulations in place for deep water drilling. You say this is something they need to start doing today and lift some of these regulations.
Well, that's correct. Again, if we hope for any economic recovery to take place, we're going to need affordable energy.
All right, so that was Congressman Jeff Landry from Louisiana, taking advantage of the situation there in Egypt to call for more drilling at home. And Cenk, I suspect that that'll be a tactic that Republicans take, which is that that there's a crisis in the Middle East, and therefore we should drill at home. We'll be seeing more of that.
We're already seeing more of it. Senator David Vitter from Louisiana, the House Energy and Commerce Chairman Fred Upton from Michigan, all Republicans all saying, drill now, baby, just in case. And, of course, what they never tell you in all of that is that when we drill here in the United States, that doesn't mean we get the oil. It's not like they're like, all right, we drilled, 1 billion barrels. Ben Mankiewicz gets 3 barrels. Cenk gets 5 barrels. No, ExxonMobil gets it, and they can sell it wherever they like. And they can sell it to China if they like. Ironically, they can go and sell it to Egypt if they like. So this is just an excuse the Republicans are using to try to do another favor for their donors, which are the oil companies.
That's such a great point. I mean, it's not about anything except money for Exxon. And when I say Exxon, we're using Exxon as the symbol for all the oil companies. Real quick, before we take the break, to wrap up the offshore drilling story tied to Egypt, the mother of Drill Baby Drill, Sarah Palin, this weekend was talking about the media ban on her, which is really just a ban from Dana Milbank of the Washington Post, one of their columnists, and he had a widely circulated column where he's pledged not to write anything about her during the entire month of February because, as he said, she has no elected office of any kind, and she'd become more like Ann Coulter, just a lightning rod for saying sort of nutty things, and that she was just she wanted to get publicity, and that we were essentially giving it to her by writing about all the nutty things that she said. So she responded to that during a speech in Reno for a hunting organization, and she said that the media ban was fine with her, said Palin. That boycott, she said, sounds good because there's a lot of chaos in Cairo, and I can't wait to not get blamed for it, at least for a month. It's all about you, Sarah. All about you. Stay with us.
Ben,
go ahead, Cenk. Sorry.
Sorry, one quick thing. On that same speech, I talked about on the MSNBC show today. I think we'll probably put that up on our YouTube channel. But she talked about how we have to do drilling in Anwar, and that, quote, Mr. Caribou will have to take one for the team.
Mr. Caribou will have to take one for the team. It's really hard not to talk about her, man. It's really hard not to talk about her. But I think the publicity only does her damage. So I'm not going to make that pledge for February. I'm not going to do it.
No.
Yeah.
Neither am I, man. She's too good, man. That Mr. Caribou stuff is awesome nonsense. It's too rich to pass up.
Young Turks. I'll be back from L.A. Cenk from New York. Stay with us. Young Turks, everybody. Ben and Gina Grad from the Pretty Good Podcast, prettygoodpodcast.com here in Los Angeles. Cenk is in New York hosting MSNBC all week, 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 Pacific. By the way, the chant I was talking about was not in any story this hour at all. It was a chant from Egyptian protesters in central Cairo's Tahrir Square, and they broke into chants today when news of Mubarak throwing out the entire government, his whole cabinet, and replacing them with pretty much equally corrupt cronies, and they broke into chants of, "We want the fall of the regime." I recognize that it probably doesn't translate very well, but that's just not a chant.
It rolls right off the tongue.
Right. I meant to bring that up, Cenk, because you know how I feel about chanting, but I'm going to make it my mission in the next couple of minutes of the show to come up with a better Egyptian chant. I'll throw it in as soon as I come up with it.
But listen, it definitely does sound better in Arabic. It goes like this: Elham Durha Badba Pura.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. Never mind. I don't need to come up with anything. He nailed it. That's great.
Okay. I don't know if you can tell. I don't actually speak Arabic.
You sold it, though. Hook, line, and sinker.
Sorry.
All right, so what do we got there, Gina?
Well, tomorrow marks the first day of a new law that allows law enforcement to take DNA from arrestees, not just those convicted of a crime. The new state law begins February 1st and requires officers to take DNA samples from anyone charged with assault on handicapped persons, stalking, or any felony. Previously, samples were only obtained from convicted felons with blood. Now they can just do a little swab in the mouth.
So now if you're just arrested, they're going to take a DNA sample.
Yeah, is that weird?
Yeah, I think that's wrong.
Well, the law requires a person's sample to be automatically removed from the state's DNA database when the suspect is acquitted or charges are dismissed. So
Inconceivable.
that'll happen, yeah.
Cenk?
All right, first of all, arrestees sounds dirty somehow.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. So they should be tested. No. Of course I understand Ben's concern. Look, having your DNA in the database, I'm actually kind of torn on that a little bit because I don't see great harm in it. Later, if you commit a crime, they can find you easier, but that means later you committed a crime. So I'm a little torn on it, but the one thing I definitely agree with Ben on is it will automatically be removed later. No, it won't.
Yeah, I wasn't actually in that position taking a stand on whether it's okay to take. I was just taking a stand on it won't get removed. Like, you got arrested, it's there, that's it.
They promise.
Yeah, I mean, even if it should have been removed and therefore it's inadmissible, the cops will still have access to it, and then they'll know it's you. And I guess in some senses, people will think that's great. It's just we've seen what uncontrolled, unchecked government authority can do, and I'm not talking crazy black helicopters. I just mean when I say government, that's just from prosecutors to cops and prosecutors all the way up to the helicopters. I mean, we got to have some. You got to have some checks and balances, and I don't know. I mean, at some point, I guess we're all going to have our DNA stored in some database, and I don't know. I'm not 100% sure that that's a great idea.
Yeah, but this is happening all over the place anyway. I mean, I know it's not DNA, but for the gym that I go to, there's no like grocery card, thing to swipe. You put your finger on it and identifies your fingerprint. So this is happening anyway.
No, it's exactly the same thing.
I don't have to like put my mouth on anything
You don't have to
unless
lick it?
I choose to.
Right,
yeah,
sure.
But yeah, they do that everywhere.
No more Renarek. Give the boot to Mubarak. No, look, the pressure's on. It's horrible, but
You might want to start with a 1, 2, 3, 4, or what do we want, or a hey, hey, ho, ho.
I'm trying to break. I mean, hey, hey, ho, ho. Host knees got to go. I mean, I can do that. There's no pressure there.
Give us a what do we want?
I mean, what do we want? Reform in Egypt.
When do we want it?
I mean, now. Okay, but that's easy. I mean,
why do we want it?
Yeah.
Because it's better.
Right, because we're tired of the oppression from 29 years of martial law. Anyway.
Terrible.
Yeah.
I was still trying to figure out what the handicapped people had to do with that last story.
I actually, that gave me a little pause too. It specifically said stalking, any felony, or assault on a handicapped person. Specifically.
So you can get your DNA taken if you assault a handicapped person.
Yes.
What if I kick this shit out of somebody who isn't handicapped?
Smooth
I
sailing.
don't get my... That's ridiculous.
Wow. All right. So go ahead. The good news is you can go to North Carolina and just lay into the able-bodied.
That you must work for their Chamber of Commerce.
Duly noted.
Jon Stewart, who I'm sure you're aware of, the host of The Daily Show, was appointed to the board of directors of the National September 11th Memorial and Museums Board of Directors.
Well, he earned it, no question.
Yeah, Memorial President Joe Daniels explained why Stewart was an obvious choice. He said, Jon Stewart is an incredibly important figure in today's news media, but he's also a New Yorker who felt, as we all did, the world change in a matter of minutes on September 11th.
We've given him credit here before many times, but, he got that bill passed. He got that first responders health care bill passed flat out by himself. Shepard Smith gets a little credit there at Fox News, but he did it himself, and then most of the other people there at Fox News spent the better part of a week trying to discredit him from doing that. But without Jon Stewart, it doesn't pass, plain and simple.
Yeah, it was dead in the water. And so if anybody deserves an honor for that, it's definitely Jon Stewart. As I said at the time, I literally have never seen one host make that much of a difference on any piece of legislation.
Yeah, I think that's largely true. And this will provide an excellent transition to our next story. Jesus, you got that 1994 Today Show video ready? All right, so Cenk, Gina, I don't use this video so much to embarrass them, although it's embarrassing. This is 16 years old, 17 years old now. Look, Cenk, you were what in 1994? So I was 20. So you're like 24 in 1994, something like that.
Yes.
So and Gina was like 7, and we didn't. I don't know that I knew what the internet was in 1994. I got it when I lived in Charleston, and I was living in Charleston in 1994. So I got it in like 95 or something like that, 96. We had it at work. So I don't know. But the people at the Today Show are supposed to be on the cutting edge. I mean, they're bringing us the news. Brian Gumbel and Katie Couric were hosting the show. As you'll see from this video, which is old, and the people at Huffington Post, somebody found it for them again. It resurfaced recently, and that's why we're bringing it to you. But just remember, don't presume just because people are hosting shows, Cenk, that these guys know what it is they're talking about. Because, man, here's some evidence that Brian Gumbel and Katie Couric, look, man, they're hosting the Today Show, but they're not reading. They're not looking ahead. They don't know about the next big, giant change that's going to revolutionize the whole way we communicate with each other. Because here in 1994 are Brian Gumbel and Katie Couric and some woman who I don't know talking about the internet, and they have no idea what they're talking about.
Back to 56 pass, I wasn't prepared to translate that as I was doing that little tease.
Oh, that's
that little
right.
mark with the A and then the ring around it.
At?
See, that's what I said. Katie said she thought it was about.
Yeah. Oh.
But I've never heard it.
Around
I've never heard it
about.
said. I'd always
That's
seen
right.
the mark, but never heard
Yeah.
it said. And then it sounded stupid when I said it. Violence at NBC.
I would be around or about in the lunchroom.
See, there it is. Violence at NBC. GE com. I mean,
Well, Allison should know.
what
do you
is
say
internet
that, Allison?
anyway?
Internet is that massive computer
Right.
network, the one that's becoming really big now.
What do you mean? That's big. How does one? What do you write to it like mail?
No, a lot of people use it and communicate with. I guess they can communicate with NBC writers and producers. Allison, can you explain what internet is?
No, she can't say anything in 10 seconds or less.
Oh, Allison will be in the studio shortly.
What does
it mean?
It's a giant computer network made up of started from.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell us what this was.
It's like
You
a
looked at the
computer
dictionary.
billboard.
It's not a. It's a computer billboard, but it's
Right.
nationwide. It's several universities and everything all joined together.
Right.
And others can access it.
Right.
And it's
I love the look on Brian Gumbel and Katie Couric's face, because they're both like, they have no idea, like some of the great things. Katie thinks it means around or about.
Wrong preposition, Katie.
Right. And Brian Gumbel's like GE com. GE com. Katie at one point asked, "What is internet?" And then they're
Not
like,
is what is the internet?
What?
What is internet?
What? Yeah, that's right. No, the. What is internet?
Like Nell.
And then there's an answer of internet is. And then Bryant's like, "Do you write to it? Is it like mail?" And then, can you explain what internet is? I'm not saying I knew, but just when you look, man, no, they don't know. They're not experts just because they host a show. They're not reading. They're not experts. Let me say this about Cenk, and remember to watch 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. I've never met anybody in my life who reads more than Cenk, and he might miss stuff. He does miss stuff, but it's not from lack of effort. And he reads and he tries. And I bet in 1994, if Cenk had been hosting a show, he would have known that there was something coming, and he would have kind of known what the internet was, or at least he would have known it was big, and he wouldn't have said, "What is internet?" I don't know. I'm just guessing, man.
I'm surprised the word hologram didn't sneak in there somewhere.
It probably would have if the conversation had gone on. I love that video.
You know, in '97, I wrote an email saying that the internet and TV were going to merge. So I knew that I knew it by '97. In '94, right around then, one of my friends got laid on the internet for the first time. So I knew what the internet was. In fact, he said he needed my apartment because he met this girl online, and that was the moment I knew that online was the greatest thing that ever happened.
What kind of girl meets a guy on the internet in 1994? I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus. That girl is dead now. There's no question.
No. Back then, they didn't know you could die from the internet. It's like, no, there was more sex at that time. In the beginning, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I met a guy no one else knows, and he's kind of hot. And if I go meet him over there, like, nobody's going to judge me in my neighborhood.
So you're saying,
you see what I'm saying?
Right. Predators had yet to figure out how awesome the internet is.
How to capitalize.
Right. How to capitalize. Right, exactly. Huh. That's an excellent point.
And we had not had those warnings yet. But, to be fair to those guys, et cetera, look, Ted Stevens, how many years later, said, the internet is a series of tubes, I understand. And that was like, what, 2006?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, he paid for that.
And by the way, as we run out of time here, Ben, let me just tell you, the Egyptian dictator Hosni is not the boss of me.
Oh, wow. Trumped.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you were spelling. I'm not sure you. I don't know. I don't think I was trumped. The Egyptian dictator.
Chant ever.
It had a little bit of a thing going, a little iambic pentameter and some rhyme.
Yeah. The Egyptian dictator Hosni is not the boss of me. It's not bad. It's
yeah, it's great. Good stuff. Forget all that crap I said about reading. All right, man. 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. Watch Cenk on MSNBC. Young Turks, 5 to 7 Pacific, 8 to 10 Eastern all this week. And, of course, clips up on our YouTube channel, but you guys already know that. Gina, prettygoodpodcast.com. Thanks.
Thank you.